think you're free, you ain't free, not like you used to be. Big brother, he knows where you go, he knows where you've been. CCTV, satellites, and drones cruising the blue. They're out there and they're watching you, yeah. Careful where you go, careful what you say. Big brother, he ain't far away. Careful what you ask, careful what you do. Big brother, he's watching you, everything you do. Big brother, he's watching you.
Hi, you guys. This is Richard Sachs back with you. I'm the host on Lost Arts Radio. It's nice to be with you again. And another chance to talk with our friend Mark Steele, who was a great guest last time. And there's been a lot of interest in what he was talking about, mainly because one of the primary issues that we've been talking about for quite a while now is the whole 5G issue connected to the planned Internet of Things and leading to the cartel that I've been studying for decades that is in charge of not only this, but many other assaults against humanity and other life forms on the planet, not just humans. And the agenda being one that a lot of people are not emotionally ready to really look at, which is basically extermination of life on Earth. And you can come to that conclusion yourself quite easily because the kind of changes that they are making in the biosphere are not the revocable kind by normal means. And if they wanted to hang around while most of us are eliminated and enjoy what's left of the planet for their own playground, they would not be making changes that were permanent changes to the biosphere. So there are ways that we've talked about in Planetary Healing Club and other places that can make you stable and strong enough to be able to look at these things without being overly upset, so that you can do your strategic analysis and decide helpful actions to take. But that's the larger context in which we've looked at 5G and Internet of Things and all these things, which most of the politicians either are working for or bribed or blackmailed or things like that, or they're just totally ignorant that it's not a good thing. The U.S. president right now fits in that category, unfortunately, and we're hoping that he'll get educated in the near future before things have gone too far. So the reason we wanted Mark Steele on is to talk about his particular background, his expertise for people that didn't hear about it last time, what's going on in his local community, and a number of other issues that will come up connected to that. So thank you for the time, Mark, and I'm really happy that you're here and looking forward to a super interesting discussion.
Oh, it'll be interesting, all right, Richard. I mean, obviously, we're at the forefront of one of the greatest crimes ever to be perpetrated on mankind. And obviously, unfortunately for me, right, I've been chosen to be a bit of a spearhead in relation to that. The reason that came about, I'm an expert in weapons systems. And the reason I'm an expert in weapon systems, I invent them. All right, so I invent weapon systems, but mainly mitigating weapons sight systems on the battlefield. I'll take everybody back a little bit of history lesson here is in order. There was a weapon system called Mammoth. It was a German weapon system, basically radar. It used to target acquire Allied aircraft over Europe. It used to direct enemy aircraft, light systems, etc., and weaponry, ground-based weaponry at Allied aircraft. And that particular piece of equipment, Mammoth, it was the first let's say, technical phased array weapon system. Now, there was weapon systems that go back a little bit further, but that's in history, and obviously we don't have any physical sort of dimensions of them. You hear about it in some of the biblical text. However, let's stick to the facts and let's stick to the science that we know of. The Mammoth system was a phased array. It was the first phased array. It had a 200-mile radius. Allied air crews were getting their eyes boiled in their heads. All right, but one of the reasons why U.S. aircraft were being attacked, it was the type of eyewear that they used to wear in aircraft. And obviously rear ban, you know, your rear bans, the whole point of rear ban was to actually ban the rear. Now, I know that if people look at it, you'll find that Bosch Shalom, the narrative goes back to the 1930s. And the reason why that is because the reality of what happened, those aviator glasses, the mirror lens glasses, you see me wear them. Where's mine? Another room. Everybody sees me wear them and they think I'm a bit of a cracker. Well, the reason why I wear them is because it mitigates microwave radiation entering the eye. Microwave radiation and other types of electromagnetic radiation frequencies are pretty problematic, and your eye is extremely sensitive to them. So there was a significant number of aircraft crew that were harmed, really seriously damaged because of this particular weapon system. Basically a bit of radar, phased array radar. What I mean by phased array, it's an offset signal where it punches out the signal to a larger distance and basically sweeps the let's say the battle space.
What time frame are you talking about, Mark? When is this happening?
Well, I talked about the 40s, 1940s to 45. A lot of this technology, though, the Germans were very advanced. In fact, Hitler had quite a suite of secret weapon systems. Hitler, believe it or not, in fact, I've got a book there somewhere. I've always had an interest in weapons for some inexplicable reason. Even when I was a child, I was very interested in knives, guns. I had firearms licenses. I was always interested in weaponry. And I think this goes back to, possibly, some universal forces, because it was strange. Even when I was a very, very young kid, where people were playing with, footballs, bats and balls, I was playing with knives. I was playing with knives and guns. I had firearms when I was 14. So I used to go shooting when I was 14. And so I knew my way around a weapon system. And obviously, I had a great deal of interest in that. And I went off, I was an engineer. I worked in an industry, basically a mining industry business, where obviously I learned my craft.
Now, you were saying that you had firearms when you were young, and you were in the UK, I assume. They have pretty strict laws on firearms, don't they? It's a little bit hard to acquire them at this point.
They had very, very strict laws. So obviously you can see where I was coming from. My father was a farmer. We had land, so we were landowners, so I could actually shoot on that particular piece of land. And that obviously gives you an ability to get these firearms licenses.
Okay.
So I had firearms, and then what happened, I'd worked for a number of years. I was material sciences. I had a background in material sciences, so I knew about fatigue mechanics and all that sort of engineering background from a mechanical perspective. And then what happened, there was a mass breakdown in the whole sort of economics of the United Kingdom, where work was being taken outside of to the Middle East, to the Far East. There was decimation in manufacturing. It was all part of a plan, obviously. Didn't just happen by chance. I mean, at the time, people thought it was just one of those things. And I then ended up working at a secret military facility, weapons facility. I can't really go into a great deal of that. That was all covered in the Official Secrets Act. And I was there for a number of years. And what I really gained from that was I understood that non-ionizing radiation wasn't the thing that we'd all been taught it was. You get a lot of scientists, you get a lot of, people with very poor educational skills and abilities. They've got the certificates, just haven't got the brains they're born with. Because, those certificates basically are a bit of paper with some lettering on. And some people, give them a great deal of sort of note. I don't give them any. It's like it is, it's just a bit of paper with some writing on. And obviously I'd worked at this particular facility where I learned a great deal about non-ionizing radiation and the power of non-ionizing radiation. Yeah. And that's about as much as I can state on that particular project. I then left there and went to oil and gas industry. Went to oil and gas. But at the same time, I then started thinking about, using your own sort of mind capacity inventing things. I started inventing a number of different products, and one of the main products I invented was because I knew about the secret history of Silicon Valley. I knew about Operation Paperclip. I knew about the weapons that had been taken from the camps, where they tested the frequencies on, sterilization, where they tested the signal frequencies on, giving people kidney cancers and lung cancers. I mean, we've got all this data. This data's there. The military have it. Like I said, it was, they tested these microwave radiation and radio frequency signals on people in camps to see what effects they could potentially have, how quickly they could kill people, how you would actually be able to focus signals and do all that sort of stuff. But we're talking in the 40s here. We're not talking about, the 60s or the 70s. Now, all that equipment, those scientists, the sort of people that should have been hung at Nuremberg ended up being taken to the US under Operation Paperclip, and they then developed those weapon systems out over. So that's what I knew all about them, and obviously I knew about the Mammoth. I knew about the development of weapon sight systems, and there was a lot of monocular weapon sight systems, and I had a lot of issues. There was some issues with some weapon sight systems in Vietnam, where a lot of troops developed eye cancers. They weren't very good. These night vision glasses and stuff like that. I mean, they had a total disaster. And I came up with this invention, a waveguide, so you could actually get the head-up display vision, but without the optical radiation hazard, all right? And I decided, that took a few years. I sort of formulated this idea, didn't really know how I was going to achieve it, but I understood the issues involved. And that ended up being sort of migrated, and I decided, once we'd actually raised the resources to do the project and the invention and the patents, I put it into a motorsports helmet, and basically is a rear vision element inside a motorsports helmet. Because one of the things in motorsports, can't see behind you. I thought that's a great idea, but what I was really interested in was seeing what the waveguide would react like in a very extreme environment. And the reason why it was so important, because the real goal, the $1 billion goal, is putting it into a ballistic helmet, into a pilot helmet. And we did that, and we did it successfully. So I had weapon sight systems, visualization, because I knew there was quite a number of helmets and helmet products and binocular visual systems, and they all had significant drawbacks. Some of them were catastrophic. In fact, one of the, when I actually, because obviously I had to defend some of these patents, because I'm a patent writer and an inventor, which is another string to the bow. I had to actually defend these in patent offices where you have to actually go and talk about your patents where there's some prior art, where you have to be able to attack that particular prior art, because obviously you can sometimes not get a patent if a patent attorney or an administrator doesn't understand what you're getting at. Then you can sometimes not get the patent. It can make a great deal of difference. So I really have to understand the technology very, very well, and that's why I'm without doubt one of the leading experts in the world. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet.
What was wrong with the old helmets in Vietnam, and what was damaging their eyes?
It was the optical radiation frequencies. What actually happened, if you use a monocular visual system anyway, that damages your eyesight. Your eyesight are binocular, and they're inextricably linked. So where, let's say, people in laboratories had used monocular, microscopes, that will damage your eyesight.
So in other words, focusing on something that the signal is only coming through one eye is messing up the circuitry with the brain and the eyes? Is that the general idea?
Yeah, it stresses the eye. It actually physically damages the eye and the eye's ability to be able to see.
Okay, so if you're going to use a microscope very much, you better do one that's binocular with two eyepieces, right?
Well, that's exactly. Well, those monocular microscopes in the laboratories are absolute. They're a fortune. Where the monocular one, it's all right when you're at school and you're doing a monocular one, you're half an hour on. But if you're looking down a microscope all day and you're doing it from a monocular visual system, there was lots of evidence of scientists when when microscopes first came about, they were all monocular. And consequently, what happened, scientists ended up having their eyes damaged because of it. So I knew I needed to invent this binocular waveguide. I knew it had to mitigate the optical radiation issue. I mean, I did actually set myself with some rather large, what I'm going to tell you were impossible feats. However, we achieved it. We achieved a binocular waveguide that was non-rigid construction. I mean, all the sort of things are impossible, because one of the things you can't do in a helmet is put anything in it that was rigid.
You mean because it wouldn't fit, basically, right?
No. If you put a rigid part in a helmet and I hit the helmet, then the rigid bit inside the helmet will kill the wearer. So therefore,
big drawback. And you'd have the same problem not only with microscopes but with telescopes, right?
Telescopes are exactly the same. Well, if you look at any of that equipment today, you'll see most people look at a screen. You don't actually physically look down that lens, because I'll tell you now, optical radiation is a category 1 cancer-causing radiation, period. Anybody, it's the reason why your eyes are set back in your head, because it's to stop the sun from catching your eye. Now, that is natural occurring light radiation, so it's basically immersive. You've got the waveform, but you haven't actually got this pulse modulation. All of these screens pulse modulate, and at certain frequencies, at the 450 nanometers, 460 nanometers, you've got a very, very high photon charge, and that's extremely it's potentially hazardous to your eyesight. In fact, I've got the research, did quite a lot of research in this field, and it was basically so we could mitigate this in the battle space, right? Because the battle space area, there's a lot of this radar and these focused, what are called beamwave weapon systems. I mean, the double up is two things, like LiDAR. The LiDAR that you see on the top of these autonomous cars, it's pretty toxic. It's basically a laser radar cross that's operating in the non-visible spectrum. Now, if I fire let's say a low power class 1 laser, if I fire a class 1 laser, you can see it, I'd get arrested for assault. But if I fire a class 3 laser, but it's in the part of the spectrum that you can't see, where it's extremely dangerous, and put your eye out, who's going to arrest us? You cannot see it. I could actually use, whether it be a facial recognition system using a laser, which could actually scan your face, but I could use a category 3, a class 3 laser. You wouldn't know. Your eyes would just start burning out.
What about the other ones like radar that we're driving through all the time, all day, and radar saying your speed is this? That's some kind of a beam that's hitting you, isn't it?
That's a class 1 cancer. I've got all the data on that, Mike. I'll tell you it's a category 2B cancer-causing radiation. I can tell you it's a class 1. That'll give you cancer. So all those radar, all that screen, and I'm not saying it'll give you cancer straight away, but probably 10 or 15 years, if you've got a propensity for cancer, you might get it straight away. But over time, it's definitely going to increase your potential to develop cancers.
Well, and that's one reason the cause and effect are not put together right away, is because of the time lag.
There's massive time. It's a bit like smoking, it could be 30 years. The epidemic, I mean, what's really concerning to me is the rollout of LED streetlight. LED streetlights are category 2 optical radiation emitter. You must wear protective eyewear. You should really wear protective clothing, because it travels under your skin. Any retinal cell it damages significantly and irreparably. So retinal cells, children in particular at risk. So you've got these LED streetlights rolling out right across the West, America. It's a program called Soft Kill, and it will reduce your life expectancy significantly. In fact, they've only been in Barcelona less than 3 years. They've doubled the breast and the prostate cancer. And, it's because I've got this wealth of knowledge in this particular field. It's why, obviously, I get trolled quite a lot by the government agencies, because what they most certainly don't want anybody to find out, they have the intent to harm you. They have the intent.
Let's look for a second at, you brought up this issue of LED. You know, what most people's exposure to LED is it's a real advance in efficiency. It's putting out more light. It lasts longer. It's all through the big stores that are replacing all the incandescent lights with LED lights to save money. And the government agencies all say it's wonderful. So from a real perspective, without the agenda in the way, what is LED in a way that people could understand?
Well, let's put it like this. The exposure to LEDs, if LEDs are in your ceiling, so they're actually in the ceiling space, and they have a diffuser, then they're not extreme, you know, all artificial light is a hazard. All right? All artificial light is a hazard.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you.
Yeah, well, the most dangerous, well, the science substantiates exactly what we're saying, to be honest. It's pretty
well, I see, Mark, I have to say this. I see an evil lamp in the back of your room there, and I suspect that's an artificial light source. So
they all incandescent. Yeah.
It's hard to totally avoid artificial light, right? I mean, your schedule's going to change.
Oh, it's absolutely. Risk, technological advance and risk go hand in hand. Everything has a risk profile. What the issue we have today, we've got technologies that are coming to the market. I call them killer tech. The technology companies behind them call that killer tech. But I mean it. They'll kill you.
Okay, so is LED an example of that? And if so, what is wrong with it?
Well, LED is an example. Well, the reason why it's pretty hazardous, there's a lot more blue 450, 460 nanometers in and around that frequency that leaks from LEDs. Doesn't matter what color they are. And it's why people talk about, the blue screen. But your screen's an RGB, so it's a red, green, and blue. So you've actually got a mixture. You actually do have some spectral balance, which sort of mimics natural light. It's not natural light, and it's not very good, and the spectral balance isn't very good, but it's a little bit better than what they're putting in the streets, because your street light's a weapon system. I know people will find that unbelievable. Your street lighting's a weapon system. It's called soft kill. And the LED street lights, they're building them so they catch your eye. So there's no diffuser. So, where you've got them in the home, there's a diffuser in the ceiling. So the light that you see is a reflection. See, reflecting of photons, that mitigates the radiation impact significantly. So if you get a reflection from an LED street light, it's basically mitigated most of the damage and effect.
Okay, so it's only looking right at the LED light where it's the damage, right?
Well, it's where the lights directly enter in the eye. It's called glare. All right, so when you see these street lights where you go, oh, that's a bit bright. Right. That's called glare. It's when you're looking directly at them, or your screen, you're looking directly at your screen. That's why I always wear protective eyewear. I always have wore protective eyewear, because obviously I work in the industry and I understand how risky, and obviously I didn't fancy the central nervous system cancer sort of thing. So that's why I wear protective eyewear all the time. And especially in and around screens, there's a number of weapon systems that were developed by intelligence agencies. The CIA have one called Assassin. It's a pulse modulated frequency emission. I can run it off your screen. You can't see it. It's a frequency that's extremely toxic and will cause you significant harm. So what was his name? Was it Chavez? Said, I think the Americans have given us cancer. I can show them the program that does that. So you see, I've always had this passion about technology and science, quantum mechanics, simulation hypothesis. I've always had a passion for science, and obviously I'm an inventor. And the fact that I invent things and understand the technicalities of them to the very, very minutiae, that's how I am, who I am, and that's why I can substantiate everything that I say. All right.
Well, then, when you invented the helmet, for the auto sports and hopefully for the military applications.
Yeah.
That needs some kind of power source. So how do you avoid the problem of generating harmful EMF within the helmet by the power that you need?
The most dangerous thing, if you look at the difference, optical radiation, we're talking about microwave radiation and electron volts. We're talking about small power levels there. The visible light spectrum, you're operating in 1,000 times plus by comparison. So where light radiation is extremely powerful compared to microwaves. Now, obviously, microwaves have got other issues with them. However, I can mitigate them. All the patents that I have, there's mitigating strategies and all the equipment that I ever developed, because I always took the point that you don't want to build anything that harms your customer. What you definitely don't want to do is build killer technologies that kill your customer. It's like these mobile phones. These smartphones do not have to be as dangerous as they are. Seriously.
Right.
They've been built to harm. I can harm you with them pretty quickly. Some of the architecture, the addictive conditioning architecture that a lot of the technology companies are using to capture and to basically addict children to stop them from being able to come off these screens. It's very similar to, how the cigarette companies used to put a lot of chemicals in the cigarettes.
Yeah, they still do.
Coffee and all that sort of stuff to addict people to it.
Right.
Well, they're doing exactly the same with the technologies. The screens are addictive. The pulse modulation.
Yeah.
It's called sticky architecture. But it's in point of fact, it's basically just addiction.
Well, it's addicting on many levels, too, because when kids are exposed to virtual reality in a screen or a video game or anything, and they see that it's much more attractive than real life, the colors are brilliant, and all the people are in, amazing superhero condition, and all these great deeds are done. I mean, regular life looks boring compared to that for them. So it's not only physical.
What's that game that just brought out? I was at a guy's house the other day, and he was playing it some game or some of the kids are playing, and the colours are so vibrant. It's a bit like heaven.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like a world of magic.
Very, very dangerous.
Isn't it interesting also that psychologically they're getting people completely into the paradigm of violence for everything? Because from the first video games that were invented to the realistic ones now, most of the themes are everybody killing each other.
I know, but that takes away the violence in the that this is actually has the exact opposite effect. People say that you get the Bobo doll experiment. That doesn't happen with these screens. What actually happens? It reduces the violent tendencies. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have increases in violence. You do, but that's a whole other thing. That's microwave radiation, which is just agitating you to death.
And it's not just 5G, but all the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, all the levels have been harmful, right?
Well, as you moved on in the levels, you started getting more complexity. The data compression systems, the QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation, they start to get more and more complicated. And as they get more complicated, they become more less natural. So you've got natural radiation. You just make it more toxic. The more complex it becomes, the more toxic it becomes. So now you've got. I was talking to a lady a while ago. It was quite funny. She said, I can't sleep at night, and I keep waking up, and I've got these films. I'm like in a. And I said, yeah. I said, your next door neighbour, Skybox. I said, the signal will be travelling to your head, so when I'm watching a film or recording a film, you're picking up some of that signal system, because really, your DNA, you're only a receiver. Your brain's a receiver of electromagnetic radiation. You're basically, an electromagnetic radiation being. There's no physics, there's no particles there, people, that whole particle physics thing is just a total fraud. It always makes me surprised, they set up this massive particle accelerator. Well, they've known there hasn't been particles for quite a long time, so what's all that about? Something a little bit more scary, I'm pretty sure. if people look into it, CERN and these particle accelerators, there's a whole other issue that they've been developed for, and we're certainly not for smashing particles together.
Right. What about some of these other radiation sources like Doppler radar that they use for weather stations and things like that? What do you know about those?
Well, it's, Doppler, you're talking about offset signals once again. Anything that moves away from the natural, you're starting to, increase risk. Because it's basic, let's think about some basic physics. Because it's not complicated. I mean, when I was at school, I had teachers, physics teachers, maths teachers, they used to try and teach you things as hard as they could. It was to make them think that they were cleverer than what they were.
They still have that in academia from preschool up to PhD level. If it's incomprehensible, they think that everyone assumes it must be incredibly great.
It makes them look a bit cleverer, right?
Yeah, that's a skill insight.
I had a physics teacher, I had a maths teacher. He used to teach you the maths as hard as he possibly could, so it was total, you just couldn't get you thinking what's going on. To make it that complicated. And I remember getting a book on maths. I had to do some really sophisticated, complicated statistical analysis, and I thought, shit, because my maths, my English is really bad, my science is excellent, but me maths is okay. I can get by. I can do equations and stuff like that. But this statistical analysis thing, and I thought, shit, what am I going to do? Anyway, I was talking to this guy. She says, "Oh, you need to get this book." And I thought, all right. Anyway, so I got this book. Right, it's only a tiny little book, like about 8 pages.
Yeah.
By the time I'd read it, I thought, shit. I thought this was difficult. I thought this was really complicated. It's not. It's a process of knowing how to put what, where, and how, and the whole thing falls to bits. And I was thinking, when I was at school, they used to deliberately make it as complicated, but it was a weakness in themselves. I always found teachers are basically they're just regurgitated liars. Lie.
And this is also coming from higher levels where they want people to feel like they can't understand anything without a team of experts to tell you what to do.
Truly disempower people. What it's all about certificates. I've said it before. I've had professors working for me. I've sacked professors. Right? I've actually sacked them. Right? When I was working for one of the larger oil and gas companies where I was a patent writer, I actually had a scientist who, he basically, a very, very senior scientist, I wouldn't name the guy, but very, very senior person, had all the bells and whistles. And what actually happened, I was writing about quite a bit of intellectual property, a large patent suite on a technology, very complicated piece of technology, and state of the art. And what actually happened, he basically told me something about something that he said was he'd sort of come up with it. It was like an invention type thing. And he'd come up with this whole sort of idea. Obviously, being a patent writer, and also an inventor, obviously I had to go and do some due diligence in relation to this. And I actually got in touch with the people who I believe were behind it. And here what this chap had done, he just plagiarised their work. Now the problem I had was we'd probably burn through £250,000 worth of patent fees, analysis, steering committees, going through IP and putting this whole thing together. Very, very expensive business. And it was all built on this assumption that this particular individual had come up with this particular innovation, when in point of fact, he just plagiarised it from somebody else. Didn't think it was for a different purpose. We thought that nobody would work it out. And I sacked him. For that. And these are the people who come with all the bells and whistles, with all the certificates. See, one of the things with me and certificates.
What does that mean? You sacked them? I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, like let them go. Let them go. I think.
Okay. Basically fired them, huh?
I fired him. That's the word. Fired him. Well, what I actually found out, and this, you can ask anybody who, in any position of, where you're taking people on, people have to come with bells and whistles. but you will soon find that some of them can do the job and some of them really can't do the job.
Yeah,
It's
that's
why
kind of what matters, huh?
coded welders, you can come with all the certification. I've run projects where you get the guys in, they then have to do a trade test where you actually get pieces of material, put them together, where they actually have to do is it under, they actually have to test, and you test them in you've got to, because those certificates, all it is a bit of paper with some writing on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an assumption.
Very expensive, mostly, too.
Exactly, it's an assumption, and that goes right away across the whole accreditation, the whole certification world.
Yeah.
So you see people who've got certificates and accreditation, and the best one, if I get a scientist who tells me he's got all these qualifications, read all straight up, because it tells you straight away, when you're hiding behind those qualifications, you know for a fact I can't do the job. If I couldn't sit in an interview and convince somebody that I know what I'm talking about, and I've got to pull out a bit of paper with some writing on to tell them who I am, well, I'll tell you what, you may as well pack your bag and get out the bag.
It reminds me of the scene in, I don't know if you saw the Pink Panther movies with Inspector Clouseau, but he was in this barroom brawl and everybody was throwing chairs and everything. And he was standing there with a very official looking and holding up his badge. And it wasn't stopping anything, he was really confused. That was his certification. But the other thing is, we've been talking about small phased arrays and things like that. What about the really big arrays on the other end, like the HARP systems that have proliferated all over the world now? What do you see those playing the part in the whole system?
It's pretty scary. The whole system's pretty scary about the different part of the spectrum we're using in different parts of the world as well. That's pretty scary. I haven't actually worked out exactly what that's about, but it does look suspicious to me, the different spectrums they're using in different parts of the world, as if it's some type of, balance and control. I mean, if you get enough equipment in any part of the world, and that's what we're talking about with 5G in particular, there's densification, so billions, we're talking millions. There's factories in China turning out tens of millions of these devices every single day. So what we're talking about, as Wheeler said, if it can be connected, it doesn't matter what your door, your milk bottle, your fridge, your packet of cheese in the fridge. He wants an antenna on it, and he wants a transmitter on it, and he wants to emit microwave radiation in air in your near locality. And what they're relying on is the IC and IRP guidelines, which are 1,000 microwatts. Now, 1,000 microwatts is 64 volts in air. It's a cooking value. It'll cook you to death. So what they're saying is, IC and IRP guidelines are 6 minutes only. If anybody's going to tell me they're going to switch that big mast off of the top of my street and switch it on for 6 minutes a day, crack on. They're going to put it on 24 hours a day, and they're using IC and IRP guidelines as a defensive wall. And anybody can go and have a look at IC and IRP's website. They've actually got a legal disclaimer which basically says you can't rely on anything we say. Nothing. So they've got no responsibility, but your government's using the IC and IRP guidelines. They should be illegal. They are legal when it comes to 5G, because 5G is a 24/7 emission, not 6 minutes. So those IC and IRP guidelines do not apply to the equipment that's been installed in your home. It is a fraud. This is a total fraud and a deception by the state apparatus to harm the citizen. I can prove it. The LED streetlights are rolling out are blue phosphor coated LEDs. All right, so that blue phosphor gives them that whitey, bluey, hazy glow. All right?
Mm-hmm.
You get a large amount of blue phosphor leakage, but as the phosphor wears off over time, those lights become more toxic, until they will kill you. They've only been in Barcelona 3 years. They've doubled the breast and prostate cancer. All of the regulatory bodies around the world, AMA, ANSIS, PHE, SHEA, the emerging risk team in Europe, have all identified LED streetlight as a risk to your children, to wildlife, to your children, Why is your government rolling them out on top of you? And why haven't they told you you need to wear protective eyewear? It's a Category 2 optical radiation emitter, and they are obliged in law to warn you. If I was putting those lights in a factory, they get shut down by the health and safety executives and go to prison. But the fact they're not putting them in a factory, they're putting them in the street so you can drive past them, because obviously I don't think they like people that drive cars.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to think about people that drive cars. If you drive a car, they're trying to kill you. Somebody is intent on harming the citizen. This is unbelievable. It is unprecedented. This is a crime against humanity. It's the largest crime. I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's bigger than the Holocaust, bigger than 9/11. It makes 9/11 look like a game in the park.
Right. Well, that was
the Holocaust. The Holocaust killed, well, the report at 6 million. Let's say it was 8. Let's say it was 10. The LED streetlight roll out in the West will kill hundreds of millions. And they will die of central nervous system cancers. They'll be ill before they die, because it makes you pretty sick, psychologically, etc. But before you get your cancer and die, Bernard Shaw said when they gassed the Jews, right, or wherever they gassed anybody, right, in the camps, the Zyklon B was there supposed to be because it was humane. Because they said, well, we'll drop the Zyklon B in, kills you pretty quickly, you're off to wherever. It's a bit of a humane way to murder the masses. Mm-hmm. LED streetlight's not going to be quick. It's going to take you 5 or 10 years, but I'll tell you now, you'll die a horrible death. You'll die of breathing tract cancers, you'll die of lung cancer, throat cancer, that would take your throat out. And not only will they do that because of the LED streetlights, the ubiquitous number of microwave radiation transmitters charge any energy in air. I'm just getting a report from America about the cityscapes and about the temperature rise. Now, obviously, you'll get a very small number of scientists who'll tell you it's got something to do with carbon dioxide. You'll get a very large number of scientists who'll tell you it's got nothing to do with that, it's got something to do with the sun. But anyway, it doesn't matter what they say. Would you then increase that energy burden, which they're already stating is killing people in the cityscapes in America, by introducing 5G, which is basically microwave radiation in air, so billions more transmitters, all emitting microwave radiation in air, increasing the temperature that they're saying is either coming from the sun or from carbon dioxide, or whatever they say it's coming from. What they want to do is increase the energy in air to increase the temperature and kill more people.
You mentioned the bluish color from the street lights. What about the ones that look orange? We have a lot of those over here.
Are the LEDs in the orange? So
this is something else.
No, they're talking about the orange lights are they're not really safe, but they're not really hazardous. I mean, like I said, I couldn't design, if I was going to design these optical radiation emitters to be hazardous, I couldn't make them any worse. I mean, they've got to catch your eye. Mm-hmm. They're designed without the diffuser. The diffuser was taken off in 2015. I mean, like I said, it's the pulse modulation. So you've got this spectral imbalance. You've got the pulse modulation. You haven't got a diffuser. Couldn't make an artificial light more lethal. If somebody said to me, Mark, I need you to make this really dangerous weapon, optical radiation, soft kill weapon, can you design something that's pretty lethal? Nah, not as lethal as these. I couldn't think of anything more lethal.
So the really bad ones are the ones that look bluish, I think is what you're saying, right?
It's the bluish hues, yes, and it's the ones without the diffusers.
How do you see if it's got a diffuser? What kind of diffuser would it have?
Well, you'll see a load of little small LED emitters where they're just a basic lens, very small. So you'll see a bank of like 20 or 30 or 10 or 16. They're normally in packs of 8. So you'll see like maybe 16, 32, 64 of these small emitters. They look like they're just like little small LEDs in the pack.
Have you seen those really bright ones that will light up a baseball field or a football field for a night game or something? Is that using the same technology or not?
It can do, but if I think at the minute there's a lot of halogen bulbs are pretty interesting, but it's the pulse modulation, the spectral imbalance that causes the real risk with LEDs. LEDs are off the scale when it comes to hazard from artificial light, and like I said, these street lights, we've got street lights rolled out in the United Kingdom now. They will kill. And they'll kill en masse, and then what's absolutely appalling about it, they'll kill large numbers of children.
They're more susceptible.
Children will die in the next 5 to 10 years from exposure to these type of LED streetlights. And the reason for that, they have a clear lens. They take a lot more of this light in. So any children in the United Kingdom or anywhere where they've got these LED lights really shouldn't be out at night. They should be staying in the home. What
about all the LEDs they're selling in the stores, Walmart and all the other stores, to put in your house to replace all your regular old incandescent lights? In fact, they're making it just about impossible to find true incandescent bulbs anymore.
Well, like I said, if the LEDs are in the ceiling, and if they have a diffuser and it's a reflection of light that you're seeing, it's far less toxic.
Right.
Yeah, so there's, I've got some in the kitchen. I don't worry about them at all because they're in the ceiling. They're covered. They've got a diffuser, and I don't look. I'm not going to look up at them. You shouldn't look at it. You shouldn't look directly at any artificial light, but you most certainly shouldn't look at these LED bare LEDs lights. What's absolutely appalling in the street lighting is you can't help but them actually pour the radiation into your eye. And that's why you must wear protective eyewear. It is an absolute must, crucial. People wear protective eyewear in and around those street LED lights.
If you have any of the bluish ones, then you need some kind of protection when you're driving at night.
And also potentially for your skin.
So you're basically saying you should wear a spacesuit when you drive your car at night around those lights, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's crazy, isn't it? I know, but it's only happened because your government agencies are acting outside of the law. Everybody knows optical radiation's a hazard, so consequently it has to be fully risk assessed. These optical radiation emitters haven't been fully risk assessed. What they're doing, they're stating, well, this is an incandescent light. We get so many lumens from it. So what we'll do is we'll put another light there, same type of lumens. I mean, it's not, by the way, because they're a lot more powerful. But we'll pretend it's the same.
Yeah, it's like 2 incandescent bulbs instead of 1 or something.
Yeah. Right? And then they go, we've got the certification from the factory in China. They say they're okay. They've given a safety certificate. Say it's
exactly. That's what you need, is it write on a piece of paper, safe.
Safe. That's exactly.
It works just like a gun-free zone sign. Stops all violence. It's the same.
Exactly. Stops all gun shooting. It's exactly.
They just dissolve when you walk in. So it's amazing. So the problem that you've been describing most, although there's a few different types of radiation sources, is primarily about LED lights, and that is not the same as the 5G issue, right?
No, LED is 5G. The LED is the 5G mast. It's the telecommunications mast. It's the connector for the sub-gigahertz scanner that's going to scan into your home.
Okay, this is something that's not commonly understood, because if people go buy a 5G light bulb in the store, it doesn't say 5G on it, it says LED. And, they just put it in a light socket that's not, supposed to be putting out special vibration or anything. So that's worth a little bit of explanation when you say it's the same.
Well, if you go in the street, I can scan a street with LED street light. Yeah, I can scan a street, a bit like a camera. All right, so it's going to actually see you. The light's just not like a light. It's not a normal bulb. It's actually a small chip. It's a transducer. So it actually sends signals out, but it can also receive signals. So it can actually see you walking up the street. Your LED street lights are not just one purpose. I mean, there can be. You can get LEDs that just emit light, and there's no... But I can guarantee you, a lot of these LEDs will actually be there as a transceiver. So they'll be bringing information back in. No two ways about it. The bit but the carrier mast for your sub-gigahertz radar, that's what 5G is, by the way. That's why it's sub-gigahertz. It's because it's long-range urban radar. It's the carrier mast for that is the LED streetlight and the justification for it. So what we're talking about in essence is a total 3D mapping cityscape capability using the LED. So the LED can see in the street, it can map you. And then if you go behind your wall, the sub-gigahertz radar, the scanner, it can look through the wall. It can see your wife in the bath. It can see, I mean, you know, these Muslim guys are going to be pretty upset when they understand, you know, how their wives have to wear these sort of face coverings. I can strip that off. I can see them with nothing on. That's going to be pretty naughty when they find that one out.
So are you saying the 5G light could either be just a light emitting device or it could be put together with these other capabilities?
Absolutely.
As options?
They're all there. The options are all there. The capabilities there. The lighting systems are being built specifically to take that facility. As soon as the local authorities get the funding and the go-ahead, that's what they're doing. I mean, we've got the full suite here.
Do you have the chip and the other capabilities inside the LED light bulb, or is it on top of it, or what? How do they put it together?
It can be on top. It can be inside. They can actually have them inside the LED.
Okay, so the street light would be likely to be an LED that's specially fitted with these other things in the light itself. And the ones that you buy at the store are probably just a light emitting device. Is that accurate?
It could be.
We just don't know, basically.
You just do it. Exactly. You just do it.
Okay. So fortunately, we can trust the government to be checking all these things. They would tell us if there was any problem.
I would definitely tell you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you first find out that the rollout of this LED lights was a danger and that the 5G and the Internet of Things that is a bigger picture of all of it is, you know, the issue?
Well, I always knew there were, you know, like I said before, all technologies carry with it risk. And when they rocked up outside of my home in 2016 with these LED streetlights, I was looking at them and thinking, they're pretty dangerous, but I've got blackout blinds anyway, because I know artificial light's not safe.
Yeah.
But I thought that's a bit outrageous. You know, the design will catch your eye. It would require anybody traveling around at night to wear protective eyewear. And especially you don't want to catch in your skin, your face, anywhere around the face, because obviously it damages the skin. It damages the retinal cell inside the skin, because you know we've got photoreceptors inside your skin as well. It damages them, so it damages the vitamin A uptake. That can cause a lot of psychological issues. You know, it's like vitamin D deficiency. That can cause depression, significant depression. Vitamin E deficiency's got another raft of issues attached to it. So it can cause that. It can cause the retinal cell to collapse significantly, and it's irreparable. So these LEDs are going to cause, you know, people to feel pretty sick, pretty ill, basically a bit of genocide, you know, mentally disabled people, which is part of the genocide agenda, and all pretty scary stuff. But obviously I just took it as that, you know, this was just a bit of stupidity, you know, they might come to senses in a few years' time, and obviously I'll protect myself. And then I had a neighbour knock on the door and she said, since I put these lights in, I'm bleeding from the nose every night. And I thought, interesting. I'd saw an antenna on the top of the light. Thought, well, you need a pretty powerful piece of equipment on a light to get somebody nosebleed. Real operators suffer from it. It's a blood stacking issue called relay, spelt with an X. It's a French word. Anyway, I was at a shop a week later, and I spoke to another lady, and I was telling her about the first neighbour that had been mentioned about the nosebleeds, and she said to me, she went, I've never had nosebleeds in my life until they fitted these streetlights, and I'm having nosebleeds like 3 or 4 times a night. I went, interesting. So that's when, and obviously these lights are quite a long way away from, the closest light to me is about 50 meters.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did, I went to work, got a meter, because I've got metering equipment. I've got quite a lot of, equipment at work, because I work in a laboratory where I developed some of these inventions. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I come home, brought a meter with me, measured the radiation. This lady's bedroom was about 1,400, 1,500 millivolts. Now, obviously not the IC and IRP cooking value, but enough to make a person's nose bleed. And I thought, well, this is pretty dangerous. So then I measured a few other places. I got another report of a little boy who was bleeding from the nose, and I went down and I spoke to him, and then I spoke to another lady who'd suffered, since I'd put the lights in, had started suffering significant neurological mental health issues. So I went and spoke to them, measured the radiation there, and then I realised there was a bit of a pattern. So I then wrote to the council and said, look, you fitted this technology, it's pretty dangerous. You fitted it illegally, because obviously there was no public consultation. We just rocked up outside our homes and fitted it. That's what happens when you live in a country where, it's a sovereign state. They just do what they want, or so they think they can. Anyway, I did a bit more investigation. I wrote to the council that didn't get any joy. They were very, very evasive. And then I went to a council meeting where there was a number of councillors, 60 councillors in the chamber. And
which council are you talking about now?
This was Gateshead Council. Gateshead. Believers, this is quite interesting. Anybody wants to get into the whole spiritual side of it.
Yeah.
Gates is a really interesting place. We've actually got an angel here called the Angel of the North. What I'm going to tell people, it's Moloch. It's the angel of death. Very, very interesting. And it is really interesting because I live here. So I live at this particular spot where I'm this inventor who understands weapon systems better than anything other. And I'm a bit of a tearaway as well. So they didn't know. The issue that the council had when I first approached them and basically put them on the spot, they didn't know a great deal about me. Anyway, they invited us in to have a chat. I speak to 60 councillors and I basically give them it full 9 yards. Right? Totally lose them off. Because obviously the science isn't simple, can be pretty complicated. They came back with some stock answers, which I knew they would, and I just smashed them. All right? Mm-hmm. Because obviously, it's being tested. IC and IRP guidelines. So, well, IC and IRP guidelines only for 6 minutes. These lamps are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your transmitters on the street lights are on.
Right. Yeah. Even if the light is not visible, right?
So I basically smashed that whole argument, and that was, they just shut up shop. They just totally shut the democracy stopped. There was no way of communicating with them. They just blocked the whole thing, and that's when I really started getting active. And I started making to the point where a lot of the lights got smashed where I live. There was a few local people whose children were suffering significant harm, significant assault, where they took it upon themselves to dismantle some of the lighting. It got to the stage where the lighting people were coming out with police escorts to repair the lighting. That's where it got to. And then they orchestrated this case. They said that because I was going on social media and I was telling people that this 5G would kill them. I was just telling the truth. And they didn't like that. And consequently, they dragged me into court and they tried to get this injunction on me to say that I was making statements to people. People were terrified in the locality. Vulnerable people were terrified of the things I was saying, and I had to get stopped. Right? Anyway, they took us into this judge, and the judge, obviously, well, none of them realised at the time that I'm pretty expert in this particular field. So I wasn't a conspiracy theorist. I wasn't frightening people. I was telling them the truth. So consequently, halfway the day gets through, they lied, basically purged in the court. They just wanted to get us off the radar, guard, shut up, which was all quite interesting, but pretty concerning when all I was trying to do was avail to the population the risk that they had to their life from this illegal covert 5G scanning radar technology. And anyway, got to lunchtime, judge goes out, he says, well, I'm going to read Mr. Steele's skeleton argument. When he came back after lunch, the whole thing was over. He just went, he started telling them off. He was saying, you must be at the risk. This is baby killing technology. I've read his statement, you know, he's said he's a conspirator. Then I got up and they tried to have a little bit of a go at me, and then I ended up basically, well, their legal team didn't have much idea. Well, you can't argue with the truth, you know, it's a bit of an issue for people, and especially when they're deceptive and they're deceiving people, and they were trying to deceive the judge. They put a number of documents into the court which were dishonest, basically forgeries. They put some forgeries in to say that the technology was safe. Well, it was a joke. They'd actually said that Public Health England had said that they had told them that the lighting system was safe. Well, the guy at Public Health England's a man called Professor John O'Hagan. I'd know somebody. I know him well. Mm-hmm. So I wrote to John and said, look, have you told Gateshead Council that the lights are safe? And he went, no, I haven't. I've never been to Gateshead. So how could I tell them the lighting system was safe? So they've got a document there that's showing the judge saying that Public Health England have told them that their lights are safe. And I've got a letter from the lead scientist at Public Health England going, he's never even been there. So they were just basically lying about everything. And that sort of came out in the court. It was quite funny as it happens. Anyway, the judge just said, look, this man's extremely expert in this particular field. I'm not going to gag him or stop him in any way in his campaign. He said, what I'm going to do, I'll give you an injunction to stop him being violent.
So you had to stop beating up all the people.
I had to stop attacking them. I had to stop attacking them or being violent towards them. Right? But you know, at the end of the day, what I had to do, I had to force the issue. I had to force them into court. So it was pretty risky. I mean, I could have went to prison because I got arrested for telling a couple of councillors they were baby killers. That could have turned pretty nasty. As it happens, I got a fine for that. Uh-huh. But it was a way of short-circuiting the system, because what they hadn't dealt with and what I knew of, they'd actually basically shut in. There was no way to communicate with this council. Because they'd been caught in this human rights crime, they'd actually just shut the whole system in. So the only way to push their buttons was to either get me arrested or get it to the point where, they had police escorts fixing the lights. So they had to get to the point where they had to take us to court to either gag us or shut us up. Well, it was the biggest mistake. They walked into a total bear trap. I mean, it was a bear trap. Just set for them to walk straight into it. And that was where I got me day in court. And not only did we get my day in court, we got the publicity that went internationally. And that's how I ended up with the 5G apocalypse documentary. All of that was born out of me getting myself into a serious bit of trouble, a hot spot. But I was only doing it for one reason, and that was to protect mankind. Because 5G absolutely will kill every biological structure on this planet. That's what it's been built for. And I know that sounds unbelievable, but it's a matter of fact. I know the technology really well. I've seen the weapons in action. I know exactly what they're capable of. 9/11, Paradise. These were all, Paradise was absolutely an EMP weapon system. Yeah. I've looked at the imagery. I mean, there was a guy did a video there the other day. I hadn't seen these before, where the ground was actually on fire and it was smoke, where the hydrocarbon-based materials in the ground were actually on fire. That tells me all I need to know. That's an EMP. I've seen them before, so I can correlate that information pretty quickly, and especially when you look at the architecture and how it was actually taken down, leaving the trees. All EMP activity. Now, I used to
live in Paradise, so I know that area. And they had glass melting and metal melting it. Part of what helped it along is for decades they had been dumping explosive metal dust out of airplanes on the whole state, and not only changing the weather so they could prove that weather change was real, because they caused it, but also setting the stage for explosive fires to be micromanaged from directed energy weapons, I think.
I think it was an EMP. When I look at the ground fire system in the pictures, it's due, that one of the things why I think that your whole narrative was a falsehood, and the reason I say that, obviously smart, secret militarized armaments and residential technology, nobody wants anybody to find out what smart really means. Because if you start taking the smart meters out, you start taking the smart equipment out of your house, then the chance of you being burnt alive reduces significantly. Because obviously, all of this equipment, I can come into your home, I can turn it on remotely. You can switch it up as much as you like. I can still come in, I can switch it on. There's no encryption, you see. So I can come in, I can switch it on, I can turn the power density up. So I could basically cook in your house at night. Now, if I've got an external EMP charge, which those street lights, those smart meters have all got extra capacity, and I fire an EMP, I'll take your house down, I'll just burst into flames, but you'll disappear. So, you know, the fact that there isn't the bodies to bury, to me, very suspicious, bit like Grenfell Tower. Grenfell Tower fire, a lot of bodies missing. Everybody was expecting 300-400 to be found. They weren't there. And I'm not saying that they were there. I just think they disappeared, because you will disappear if I put enough microwave radiation into a hydrocarbon-based product, a human being in particular.
You can basically vaporize it.
Vaporize it, just turns you into dust. You're a bit still there at crematorium, you know, I turn into dust.
Right, and there's another element too, because in Santa Rosa, California, for example, there were these super hot unnatural heat fires up to arbitrary borderlines, and they stopped. They were directed to stop, obviously, and then right outside those lines, there was shrubbery and plastic bottles and things that weren't even warm. So it's not just an EMP that's, you know, indiscriminately burning everything. It's exact boundaries. If they wanted to get rid of certain houses, they targeted that house and it would burn to the property line and stop, and all the trees would be saved and everything, and they'd get rid of those people. So, you know, there were several systems were being used there.
Oh, it could have been, it could have tested a few different weapons. The bit that got me about the dual weapon, because you could see it, most dude operate non-visible spectrum. So why would you use the one that people can see? That was the really, because it was a dual weapon, I could see it. I saw some lasers, you know, you could see the light flash, you could see what was going on. I thought, well, why would, you know, not, if I was going to, it's like killing Kennedy, shooting Kennedy with a tracer bullet. You know what I mean? That was
similar idea.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. So why would you use a dual that you do it with that operates in the visible spectrum? To me, that's why I thought there's one or two things. You know, could this have been a ransom? You know, the Chinese could have said to the American government, look, or some ransom thing going on. We've got this weapon, it's fully deployed. The Americans have went, we're not paying you, we're not going to do that. They've went, right, well, here, have a bit of that. Just
to prove what you're doing, in other words, right?
Aye, we've got this capability. It's in all your cities. I mean, they've got enough capacity now in America to take half of America out. So
right, and this is prior to the rollout of Internet of Things, right? Where, you know, billions of items will have transmitting devices in them. That hasn't even started.
Hasn't even started. Once you start at 5G, see, 5G to me is a total, absolute takedown of all biological life. It's just a total wipeout. You only have to look at the capacity of the equipment. All the equipment that's fitting has got this overcapacity. It can all be accessed remotely. It can all be turned up remotely. I mean, why did Google put its vehicles in the road when they were doing the Google Maps? And then when it was mapping, it was actually cracking the passwords on people's routers. Now, they know everything that's going in and out of your home, everything. Anything that comes in, any signal comes in through your router, they're on it. So they see it going backwards and forwards because they're sitting in the servers. So they can capture all of that data. So why do they want to crack your password on your router? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they want to come into it and change the configuration and turn it up. It's the only other option. Why would they do it?
Yeah, and you know, the city councils and the different levels of government that are consciously going along with this to get financial benefits of some kind, they can hire unlimited numbers of scientists to say it's all safe if they just pay them for the testing.
You see, it's going back before what I talked before, Richard, about certificates. These people, I call them indoctrinated. The doers are told. You know, you've got to look in the type of people we're talking about here. They go to school, they do their homework, they get the pat on the back, they get the 4 gold stars. Yeah. They then go to, they go to college, they get the same 4 gold stars, pat on the back, you're a good boy, buy the teacher an apple.
Mm-hmm.
They then go to university, it's the same old thing, and the next minute you've got somebody who's totally indoctrinated and they just like to do. They live in this paradigm, they live in this world where it's all about doing as you're told. It's not about asking questions.
That's right.
The hard questions.
That training starts in preschool.
Exactly.
And now they're starting at giving the little tablets to people who can't even walk yet, that are just crawling around.
It's crazy.
Right?
It's a total indoctrination. I mean, when I was a kid, for some inexplicable reason, if somebody said, look, we want you to do that, I said, I hated anybody, especially, I love people that have got things to say and I love people that have got things to tell me. But I hate people that, when they tell you you've got to do this or you must do that.
Right.
It's like pouring acid on me eyes.
I know. I have the same disease that you do. And when I was in 2nd grade or something, and they said to memorize the multiplication tables, I said, "Why do you want me to do that? And tell me how it works and why I should do it. And then if it's reasonable, I'll do it." And this really was not appreciated by the teachers.
So they'll have you done as a bat, they'll have a little tick, black.
I mean, it made sense, and so I learned it, but not just now. In PhD and medical programs in health, in advanced so-called education, they're told that they are learning things, but they're memorizing things, and it's not the same.
They've totally destroyed the whole educational system. Where at one time, when you did a PhD, when you did a degree, you had to write, your thesis had to be on something that was slightly, different. But there's that many kids doing degrees now, it's impossible to have something novel to write about. PhDs are the same. There's that many kids doing PhDs and then they're getting a job pulling coffee in McDonald's, right. some other fast food restaurant. I mean, the amount of kids I know with PhDs and actually they're working in coffee shops. And it's, it's not because they didn't do the work, it's just the fact that there's so many of them being churned out. There's no necessity for them.
Right, they have enough already. Yeah, and the whole so-called scientific system of peer review is to make sure that nobody thinks outside the box or the barriers that they're supposed to think inside.
I don't mind I understand the mechanisms of peer reviewed, and I quite respect that, but it doesn't stop people from still exploring a different approach to something. And as long as you can substantiate it well enough within a scientific paper, then you will have some blowback, but then you can actually test that. You get your...
Well, right, and that's all assuming that the peers are not corrupt.
Well, that can be a bit of an issue. One of the problems that you've got in academia today is the control of the universities. So what's actually happened? I mean, they get these funding councils, so they're funding to government narrative. It's like the whole carbon reduction thing. I mean, another fraud, total fraud. You've got university behind it. You've got people working on this bullshit, wasting money on something that's, a total and absolute falsehood. I mean, I know because obviously I worked on the carbon. I did a couple of projects when I was in oil and gas on carbon, because I've always been in research and development. So even the work that I did in oil and gas was in R&D. And I had a position doing carbon capture and storage. Talk about fraud. And now what they're doing, they're trying to bring it back. They're trying to regurgitate it with this, this whole carbon. It's just the whole thing's a total absolute load.
Well, the universities are controlled by who funds them, but also they're controlled also by what's called accrediting agencies. And
yes.
and they get accredited, which is where all their money comes from, because they advertise that they're accredited, but they'll lose it if they don't follow the rules of the accrediting company or agency. And so they've made it so regimented now that in universities, teachers are barely teaching, they're really facilitating, and they go down a checklist of the things that they have to teach, in quotes. And it can't vary, and they have to use the textbooks they're told and things like that. It's an intense situation. So if you've got a situation like in Gateshead, for example, where if they're following orders from above, like you just described they learned in school, how do you get any kind of hope for change? Because this extermination agenda that you've been describing, it's coming from a unified control point much higher up. And they don't intend to just say, well, rats, you're right, we'll just have to stop. You know, they're intending to complete it. So, as far as I can tell, they're not just going to stop.
No, they're not going to stop. We need to stop them. That's why, you know, I get a lot of resistance, a lot of trolling. You know, we've got a plan, right? The plan is, right, to resist. A plan is to build an army of resistance. A plan is to take them into court. I'm pretty sure in the British judicial system, any judicial system around the world, they haven't written in the fact that your state operators can commit genocide on you. So therefore, I've pretty hanging my hat on the fact that we can take this to court. We can resist by, you know, raising the right resources, getting them into court, but also at the same time, building the army of resistance. That's how you fix this. It's about knowledge, increasing people's intelligence in relation to this, and then building enough people up to go and resist the crime. Now, that's one of the reasons why I have an awful lot of, let's say, the trolling and the resistance, the state apparatus resistance, and all the sort of stuff where, you know, they dig around your past 30 odd years ago, and, you know, stuff like that. It's all part of a narrative. I mean, they've got to try and stop us somehow. I'm like a train, and they're thinking, shit, how are we going to stop? Well,
and your past is really kind of irrelevant, because even if you're the worst person in the solar system, you know, if not in the bigger area, then it's not relevant if what you're saying is the truth.
It's not relevant. Well, it's the funny thing about it. It was relevant in as much as it was relevant as much as from an education perspective, and that was a journey that put me on a journey that taught, you know, the sort of things you learn that nobody ever's going to learn these type of things. You never get. It's not written in a book. So I learned an awful lot in the experiences that I've had. I've had a very checkered past. And I've learned some unbelievable things that people just wouldn't believe. I mean, I've read papers, I've read stuff that, you know, you would never ever be privy to, stuff that's been under D notice, you know, stuff that you just wouldn't ever be able to see. Well, I've actually been sitting reading through stuff, and you think, shit, this is unbelievable. You know, the information I'm getting here, and it's all there to be read. So the experience, I'm pretty sure it was all part of a divine plan, because I've got no doubt, right, I was born for this. There's no two ways about it. Me inventions, all me inventions. I mean, I invented a lift boat. I invented an exiting tool. I've invented a reactor, a molecular reactor. It's the same reactor that they're building in America to gas everybody. I mean, the equipment they're using in the UK, I've seen up to date, is pretty toxic and noxious and pretty sophisticated. But I've actually seen some images of some equipment they're putting in America that basically just reactors to gas you all. And they're hanging them on telegraph poles, pretending that telecoms, not telecoms at all. It's actually a reactor. I invented it. I invented the weapon that they're using on you. I mean,
that must be a strange feeling looking at that happening when feel like you've helped them inadvertently, I guess.
Well, I'd invented it for a totally different reason. It was to disassociate the carbon dioxide molecule. I realized that whole thing was a complete fraud, and I thought, hey, I can make some money here. and I'll invent something because I knew about.
So you were going to separate carbon from oxygen?
Yeah, carbon dioxide. Yeah,
Or you have this black dust falling out when that's happening, or something like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we capture, had it all patented. We did a feasibility study at Strathclyde University. We're going to capture the carbon because the carbon's worth money.
Okay, wow, that's pretty. And you're also producing free oxygen when you do that too.
Free oxygen, yeah, and cracking it out of the tower. We're actually going to use the fluid dynamics in the flue, right? Create a static electricity motor, right?
Yeah.
And charge the air to such a degree, because it's all about pulse modulation. I wouldn't tell you exactly how we do it. It's pulse modulation and the energy and frequency. And we had transducers to be able to do that, but using the fluid dynamics in the fluid, using static electricity to charge and actually fire it off and break the covalent bond.
So probably your biggest protesters would be the plants, because they want the CO2, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah. Plants need CO2. Well, I knew the more CO2 you put into a planet, the more the plants stick it underground. The faster the soil grows. The soil will grow. The plants take it underground. I mean, anybody that says, cattle, if are allowed grasslands to grow and rot, the methane that comes off them is pretty, but not good for the environment. If you get cattle to graze it, obviously they keep it very low, they graze it, and what actually happens, a lot of the stuff that comes out the back of a cow turns to soil. Obviously, they blow a lot of methane out, but no more methane than what would happen if you let the plant rot in the ground. But the really interesting thing, the most important thing about cattle grazing is the fact that the roots take the carbon dioxide underground, because the grass, the more you cut that grass, the quicker it grows. So the more roots grow, so it takes more carbon dioxide underground. So anybody that tells me that cattle are a problem for the environment...
No, it's obvious. If you've ever done a garden and you use organic cattle manure for fertilizer, it works great. And you end up with beautiful soil, not problems.
It's soil. It's soil. I mean, cows. My dad had a farm, and obviously he used to clean out the barns. He used to keep cattle in over the winter, and they'd clean out the barns. And about 3 or 4 years after that shit had been they'd pile it up and pile it up and pile it up. And after 3 or 4 years, I mean, you should have seen it turn into fabulous soil. I mean, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It is beautiful. And they could discover the next step, too, which is grind up rocks and put the rock dust on the soil under the manure, and it transforms everything to an even higher level. And the food becomes superfood because of the mineral content. It's mimicking what the glaciers do, grinding up the rocks, prior to the interglacial period that we live in. Yeah. So there's a lot that they can do. Nature's really well designed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we need to stick closer to nature and the natural form of things. It's extremely important. And, it's like a lot of these signal systems now, they're so complicated, so complex. It's like this virtual reality stuff. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Why would you want to live in a virtual reality world that's got this, this absolutely crap optical radiation pouring into your eye from a pulse modulated screen that'll kill you?
Well, they usually don't mention that detail,
No, they don't.
Promoting VR.
I was part of an IAE working group looking at the safety standards. We actually set it up specifically looking at virtual reality headsets, honestly.
You mentioned the trolls, attacking you, and usually when you get really attacked like that, it can be like a government seal of approval that you're doing something really good, or they wouldn't bother attacking you, right? But there's a couple of things that get sent to me, and I wanted to see what your response to it was. There's one fairly detailed article that goes on and on and on, and it's talking about the fact that can I say the name of your company? Is it okay?
Yeah.
It's the same as in your email address. It's Review.
Yeah.
Right? And it's saying that was listed by Gateshead as one of their collaborators for some kind of Agenda 2020 or Horizon 2020 project. And so the author of this article was saying that proved, obviously, that not only were you a terrible person, but you were helping the council work toward a smart future while protesting that they were doing that, and they thought that was very strange.
Well, you see, this just shows the type of ignorance that people have. First and foremost, right, EH2020's got nothing to do with Gateshead, all right, nothing. EH2020 is a European fund for innovators, all right? Now, if I'm going to get innovation credits for a business and a patent, because obviously most companies that have patents and innovations, you get quite a lot of tax credits, but you've actually got to be part of a registered group. I mean, you've got to be a bona fide. So if I wasn't part of EH2020, right, which is a funding route in Europe for funds for innovation, well, you wouldn't have any innovations and you wouldn't get a tax credit that keeps your business going. So anybody that's, I mean, this just shows the type of ignorance of the people that are trolling about. But I'm going to put this into perspective. These are people who are supposed to be 5G activists, but all they seem to be wanting to do is branch about in the companies that I've been involved with to try and find and dig something up and then put 4 and 4 together and make 25, right? 2020. It's absolute garbage, and it just shows the lack of knowledge they have in the field. I mean, one individual, I had a conversation about 5G. They didn't have a clue. They don't know what 5G is. And what happened, I broke cover about what 5G is because I know it's a weapon system. Mm-hmm. 5G's got nothing to do with H2020. 5G was actually developed in the military, right? I was party to that. If they saw some of the contracts I've been involved with the US military, BAE Systems and others, believers that have something to complain about. But unfortunately, they're covered under the Official Secrets Act, and if anybody gives them that information, they would shit themselves and probably go to jail because there'd be a trail back. I'm here to stop 5G because 5G is going to kill anything, and these people are mentally deranged. They're mentally deranged, right? I've actually put my life at risk to uncover this information. The council, the same individuals, turned around and said that the court cases were fabricated. It weren't real. It wasn't a real case. It was all made up. Well, I mean, what a ridiculous premise. So the government, who are trying to roll out a weapon system on top of you, right, have actually given me a court case that give with international prominence because they're trying to cover it up. I mean, it just, the argument is so unbelievably mentally retarded. You know, you've got to be a bit of a lunatic to actually believe it. And the person behind it's a mental health patient, seriously. And, you know, well, I know quite a bit about the intelligence world and about the intelligence agencies. The intelligence agencies use mental health patients. Mm-hmm. Deplorable, I know, but they do. And the reason why they do that, they can discredit them very, very easily. It's quite easy to discredit people who've got mental health problems. Yeah, so
and the mind control is easier too.
Well, of course. Well, what happens? They've got the drugs, so you know they're on benefits. They get an extra few bob, and they give them some nice drugs that keep them on message. I mean, it's total lunacy. It is absolute lunacy. The most appalling thing is people who even read it and believe it. You only have to go, and the reason I don't like mentioning these people. Yeah, it's got embedded, the state apparatus have got embedded software, so anybody that tracks me and finds their website, unfortunately, clicks on it to read these salacious bits of information. I mean, the best one was the other week, I'll tell you about that in a minute. The reads this information, they've got very, very sophisticated tracking software, and that will download into your machine. And anyway, so anybody who's interested in 5G, who unfortunately goes to this site and reads it, their machine then gets hacked. I was speaking to somebody the week who they had their credit card details taken, because obviously they've become active. They've started spending money on leaflet dropping. The next minute, someone's hacked into their website, somebody's hacked into their bank accounts, took all that money, and the next minute they're running around like headless chickens. So, this is the state apparatus at play. Right?
Well, there's some kind of a psychology that people like. I think it's comforting to discredit disturbing sources of information.
Right.
The other thing, Mark, that the same author is promoting is that they benevolently wanted to send some super expert to give more credibility and do a special series of tests on the Gateshead lights. And they said that that was not allowed, and that when they did come privately afterwards, they couldn't find any 5G signal. And this is being written all over the place.
Well, that's very, very easily dispelled, and was a basic lie. It's complete fabrication. What actually happened, there was a guy called David Webb. David Webb was a microwave oven salesman who goes around doing metering for individuals in the country. What actually happened? David contacted me. We got a rather large write-up in one of the national press about the microwave radiation, about the children bleeding from the nose, and about women bleeding from the nose. It was a very, very good write-up. All right. And what happened? This character contacted me, said, "Look, we need to come to Gateshead and measure the radiation from these 5G transmitters." And I said, "Well, why do you need to do that?" I said, "Because they've got them all over the country. I know Sheffield. Why do you need to travel?" This guy lives down south, quite a bit down south, maybe 300 or 400 miles from me. And I said, "Why do you need to come to Gateshead? They've got them all over." I said, "It's a sub-gigahertz urban radar scanner." Now, at the time, everybody believed that 5G was these millimeter waves. Now, I'm not saying it's not millimeter waves, but you don't have them yet. But what you do have, you've got a sub-gigahertz urban long-range radar. You can see quite a distance in the built-up urban environment, and that's the reason for it, because it's radar. It's a scanner.
That's really different than what's being put out there, because what we're all hearing is that the 5G is, yes, millimeters, but they're very, very high frequency.
It's it's a total lie. This is the industry. This is why they hate me. They hate me with a passion, because what actually happens, they're not millimeter waves, they're sub-gigahertz range, right? And they are long-range battlefield interrogation radar. See, the higher the frequency, the less it penetrates walls, concrete, buildings, etc.
Yeah.
So when I found out it was an 868.
That's the excuse for putting towers everywhere, because they're saying you have to have them very frequent or they don't work.
Yes, and that is a complete and utter falsehood. It is a total industry deception, because what this is, it's a military deployment of a weapon that they're going to bring outside your home, where I can target a choir and I can shoot you with it. All right, that's really what it is.
What about the penetration issue? And they're saying that it doesn't go through things very well.
Sub-gigahertz, I can travel through 30-foot of reinforced concrete with ease.
Okay.
Sub-gigahertz.
That's a little different than what we're being told, you know.
You're absolutely being deceived. This is the sophistication and the deception. That's why they hate me as much, and why I get as much targeted attention, because unfortunately I'm an expert. So when I understood it was a sub-gigahertz frequency, I understand straight away that it's radar, because obviously long-range radar, sub-gig. So I'm thinking, cheeky bastards, what they're doing. Then all of a sudden I get a hands on one of the pieces of equipment. Yeah, it's got a high-gain dielectric lens. So not only can it scan you, it can kill you as well. So, this is the issue I have with these trolls, these bad actors, right? And it's not, they haven't got a clue. Somebody's winding them up like a clock and setting them on the issue. So anyway, going back to the story, this chap offer these services. Well, obviously, I've got a bit of a history. I understand people offering things for free, always suspicious.
Yeah. It's always an advertisement for something else.
Well, I'm a little bit too sharp. I realised that the guy was up. So what happened? I said to him, "Look, it's an urban radar system. It's sub-gigahertz. That's what 5G is." Anyway, he came back to me, and he came back with an email from a known scientist, a guy called Alistair Phillips.
That's the one that was mentioned to me.
Right, well, Alistair Phillips wrote to me and told me, right, that it couldn't be 5G because it had no backhauling facility and it was a light management system, nothing more, and it couldn't be 5G because it operated in a sub-gigahertz range and it didn't have a backhauling facility, all right?
Okay.
But it could backhaul the data from the near environment, right? So, anyway, unfortunately,
And he may have actually believed what he's telling you too.
Well, he may have done, but he may not have done, because unfortunately, he would only have to take a very cursory look at the company to understand that the technology can definitely backhaul. The manufacturer said it can.
Yeah, but a highly trained scientist is very difficult to think outside what they've been taught over many years.
You've hit the nail on the head. Well, what happens? They read an article, they read a book, and they believe it. Well, I never believe anything because I'm a weapons expert, and I'm a suspicious character. You've got to remember, I've sat in rooms, right, where we've actually talked about how many people can kill for the dollar. How many people you can kill for the dollar. It's part of weapons systems analysis.
Right.
How many can you kill per dollar? So I'm a skeptic. Unfortunately, I look at things from a holistic perspective. So what I never do, somebody gives me a bit of paper and says, look, it says, you better go over there. I go, well, hang on a minute, what does that really say? It's a bit like any intelligence officer worth your salt, you do that. So what actually happened, he basically believed what this Harvard technology company had basically said, that it was a controlled light management system. Well, it isn't. Now, I knew it wasn't because I had people bleeding from the nose. I also knew it was an Part 15 FCC antenna because the radiation levels at 30 meters, a Part 15 FCC approved antenna, 5 millivolts. That's the maximum it can be at 30 meters. And I was measuring 600 minimum, 2,000 and 3,000. So I knew it was an Part 15. It looked like a normal dipole antenna until I got the top snapped off and had a look at it. And obviously it wasn't. It was this weapon bit of equipment.
And if you're looking for very high gigahertz frequencies, you wouldn't even see it, right?
You wouldn't. You cannot measure. Right. The thing about 5G, this is the lie. You can't. I'll tell you. Well, let's cover this bit first because it's important. Right. The Phillips story. So Alistair Phillips writes to me and said it's not 5G. He's confirming it's not 5G.
Right.
And I said, well, look. If you don't think it's 5G, don't come to Gateshead. Right? Just don't come. Go and do some measurements elsewhere.
I see what you mean. Okay, yeah. So that's why you didn't invite him. And what the people are saying is that the reason you didn't invite him is because you're trying to fool everybody. And it's so simple, like you said about these teachers. Look at what you're doing. You're trying to let people know 5G is deadly. That's what it comes down to. And if that's what you're doing, that can't be a fraud because it's true.
Well, they came to Gateshead, or so they say they came to Gateshead. All right, they say they did, but we've got no evidence of that. They say they came to Gateshead. I already told them that the equipment operated in the sub-gigahertz range. So they then come to Gateshead to say they measure it and it operates in the sub-gigahertz range and it's not 5G. I've already told them it's 5G and it operates in the sub-gigahertz because it's urban radar. But this was prior to the European Union deciding that, and the industry deciding that 5G is, as a matter of fact, operating in the sub-gigahertz range. They didn't know that at the time. I did, but nobody else did. So everybody said, he doesn't know what he's talking about. 5G does not operate in the sub-gigahertz range. It does. Now, we all know it does. And I wrote to Phillips and I told him, I want a retraction. You're a scientist. You are wrong. I want a retraction. I didn't get a retraction. I wrote to Phillips. I told him, I said, you've made a statement. It's not 5G. We now know the European Union and the industry have admitted that 5G is its main blanket coverage is sub-gigahertz. You are wrong. I want a retraction. There's been no retraction. And this clown, this mental health patient, is still using the same narrative to say that. So they came to Gateshead to tell us it was something I already knew it was. I'd already told them it was 5G, already told them it was operating as sub-gigahertz.
Right.
So that whole narrative, that whole bit of misinformation, that's all it is. It's just bullshit. And this just shows the type of people we're dealing with, where they'll keep on regurgitating. And what they're hoping for is that I'll react, I'll give them a bit of a platform, because obviously I'm known across the world, give them a bit of a platform. Well, I'm not going to give them a platform. To be honest, I wouldn't wipe my shoes on them. You know what I mean? These are the sort of people, all the mental health patients, the state operators have used them for many, many years. Let them crack on. People will find out what happens with this issue. The truth will be out. You can't stop the truth getting out. Unfortunately, they've been proved wrong again and again and again. They actually made statements. The same people rang Barry Trowan, threatened him on the phone. The same people rang Ingrid Dickinson and threatened on the phone. They then went and told people that I'd been on the phone and threatened them. I mean, I love Barry. He's a hero. Barry confirmed what I said was in Gateshead, was in fact 5G.
When did you find out? When did you find out that 5G was sub-gigahertz?
Well, what actually happened, how I knew it was operating in the sub-gigahertz without the industry telling everybody it was in the sub-gigahertz, and in the European Union confirming it was in the sub-gig. What actually happened, the spectrum of the antenna, the specific spectrum of the antenna is in 868. But I already found out that that was the spectrum part that they were going to use for autonomous vehicles, 868. So the 868 shooty bit, so the antenna that actually has a direct lens that shoots a collimated signal at an autonomous vehicle, it has to shoot at it, right, to get the data rate, because you've got to get this compressed data packet down a collimated signal for it to work 868. So I knew autonomous vehicles 5G. So I knew that the 868, I'd already worked this out for myself, because I don't need somebody to tell me or write it down on a bit of paper and say, Mark, this is what you've got to do, my boy. I'd already worked it out. It was 5G. So what happened, I was going against the whole grain, because everybody in the industry and everybody in the mainstream media, they were going on our millimeter waves, 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. Well, guess what? They were wrong. I've never had a single apology off anybody. I've never had a single retraction. And that tells me that bad actors, if you haven't got the temerity, right, if you haven't got the honour, when you've made a mistake to actually, I will torture David Webb, Alistair Phillips, anytime I get the opportunity, I'll stand up and tell people they are discredited people. I've got the evidence. I'll say it again and again. People that want to get in and start making comments, lay people make mistakes all the time. It's like this mental health patient. She can say what she wants. The woman's a lunatic. But you've got scientists, right, who say things. Scientists shouldn't make comment unless they are correct. I've got 30 years experience in research and development. I never see a thing. You hear me talking, I've got a very broad Geordie accent. And what happens with people, because I speak like this, they think I'm thick. Well, let them crack on and think I'm thick, but unfortunately, walk into me bear trap and I'll make a fool of you.
Yeah.
Because I forgot a lot more than what some of these people who think they know about 5G and what 5G is. I forgot more.
I think my comment on that, I agree with you, but I would say don't underestimate the power of higher education, because when they've gone through enough of it, it's like cult training. I know from the inside. And it's not so easy to have common sense or direct perception of anything true after you're highly educated. There are people that have gone through it and survived, but most of them don't, as far as common sense goes. And what I am thinking is that we ought to do another show, if you're open to it, on the technical aspects of 5G and all these other things that are connected to it, not to sound complicated, which is what the conventional people would do, but to take complex realities of the technical world and translate them into easily understood, accurate principles. And I think that kind of teaching should be more widespread. It would be fun to do that with you if you're open to it.
Absolutely. Well, Richard, one of the things I'm going to say, right, one of the greatest scientists in the world, right, one of the greatest scientists in my view, without doubt, was a man called Michael Faraday. Michael Faraday invented electric motor. He was as advanced, if not more advanced, than what Tesla was. One of the greatest scientists. He was the greatest scientist that ever came out of Great Britain, right?
Did you say Michael Faraday?
Michael Faraday. You know the one with the Faraday cage. He was into electricity and all the rest of it. Yeah, very, very clever man. Right?
Okay.
Invented quite a lot of things, because invention's quite an interesting part of universal forces. Because I don't believe, I'm not an arrogant sort of person, and anybody tells me where those inventions come from, well, I'll tell you it's God.
Yeah, which is where everything comes from there, so you're safe saying that.
Absolutely. Well, I absolutely know, because I can explain from a science. If you want to get into quantum mechanics and simulation hypothesis, I'll tell you how I know that God's there. I could actually sit and have a conversation. You know, I could actually sit and have a scientific, let's say, lecture on the realities of God.
Yeah.
I'd love to, because I can
Well,
explain.
you know, the attitude of real science is that it questions everything. And that's exactly the characteristic of real spiritual quest. Because if you're worried that questioning something is going to upset God or make the source mad at you or something, that's silly. Because that's just painting God in the human image. There's something great, and it's accessible if anybody's willing to do what's necessary. So I think we should have one or more classes and discussions on areas of science that are important, and they're not this disconnected, boring subject that everybody tries to get out of. They're insight into reality, which is what people are trying to find out, I think. So it'd be fun.
Without a doubt, yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. And you know, the issue that we have, we get a lot of indoctrination, and that's a bit of an issue. You know, if you listen to what another world-beaten scientist was Einstein, right? And Einstein, one of his rules, you know, he said, you know, they've allowed us into the guild of whores. So that's what he said, scientists. You know, the controlled scientific community, let's say, guild of whores, that's what his name was for them. And, you know, one of the things that Albert said was his formal education was what destroyed his imagination.
Exactly. And there are countermeasures you can take, but if you're not aware of the problem, you probably won't do it.
I worked with a great scientist. The guy was a genius a number of years ago, US Naval Research. He ran his own team there for quite a number of years. Very humble character, very bright, very, very, very sharp. And some of the things, and he used to say to me, you know, Mark, it must be absolutely fantastic, because, you know, they've got these professorships in 10 years. Got to be very, very careful about, you know, the minute, the slightest thing they say in public. And he said, because I used to just off the cuff, I remember bumping into this NASA scientist, very senior scientist. And I said to him, you know, I met him in an airport in Aberdeen, and I said to him, how are you? I says, you didn't really go to the moon, did you? Like, dead cheeky. And he's like, oh, yes, of course we went to the moon. I went like, fucking no. Yeah. Well, as it happens, I found out that the guy couldn't walk a straight line. So obviously fitted in very well at NASA. But it was, you know, it just shows you, you know, off the bat. And I can be quite cheeky, and I can be off the cuff, and I do say things. And a lot of people go, it's possibly the sort of tone and the offhandedness of the comment. But I can guarantee you, I've got 30 odd years worth of experience, and I normally say things that are absolutely on the money. And I can pull a book out and I can go, well, hang on a minute, go and have a look at that. And there's some published peer reviewed. I'm into the whole published peer reviewed. I think it's a great basis of where you need to stand. In standing on the shoulders of, you know, some of the great heroes, Michael Faraday, for instance. Now, Michael Faraday, as far as I'm concerned, was one of the greatest scientists of all time, if not the greatest scientist. And the reason why he wasn't well liked, he didn't have a formal education. He had no formal education or qualifications at all.
Right.
which made it even more unbelievable. The quality of the work, the preciseness of his science, the inventions that he had. But one of the reasons why he's not as well reported is because it absolutely destroys all of the fixed narrative about the certification and the qualification. See, once you start to get that qualification and certification, you've lost your scientific merit.
That's right. I mean, you would expect the brilliant scientists to be more from not in the school system. And now we're looking at their efforts to censor anything that's unacceptable for thought completely. And that's really ramping up. There are millions of pages and sites being taken down off social media. And, we'll probably go into that next time, too. I think it's very relevant. But since we need to cut this off with time, what are the sites that you would like people to get in touch with to know what you're doing?
The most important thing, anybody who wants to resist the 5G appalling attack on mankind, there's a website, it's saveusnow.org.uk. So that's Save Us Now, all one word. And you send an email. We have a number of documents that have been very, very successful. There's advice on how you use social media, how you gather your number. One of the things we're going to fix 5G. We do beat this, by the way. But how we beat it? We beat it with focus. We beat it with gathering numbers and building an army of resistance. No one's coming to help. You've got to understand, we have caught your authorities, your government, rolling a weapon system out on top of you. They're not going to give in easy. It's not going to be easy, and the only way we overcome that, we grow our number of people who will resist this crime against them, their families, their friends, their pets. And how we do that? info@saveusnow.org.uk. You'll receive from them 3 documents. Those documents advise on lawful resistance, how to build your number, and also documents that will help you to request information, how to catch the criminals, basically to lay a trap for them so that they'll bring themselves along to the misinformation on 5G. What I'm going to say to people, 5G is an indictable crime. It is absolutely in breach of the Nuremberg Code. It is experimental. It is a weapon system. It was developed by the military as a weapon system, and what you're starting to see rocking up outside your bedroom windows is part of that weaponry. This is here to kill. This equipment is not telecommunications. It's masquerading as telecommunications, but that's all it is. It is a weapon system here to kill. So anybody who's got 5G on a business, anybody who's part of the 5G rollout, you are party to genocide. You're part of killing off the population. And I'm going to tell them something as well. Ignorance is no defense in law. Absolutely. And we are coming. Justice, we have set up here a crowd justice fund. It's another reason why the trolls and the government hate me. It's because I have a plan to bring their cabal to heel. And how we bring them to heel, we're taking the court. There's not a court in the world will allow a government to commit genocide on its people. Now, I definitely believe that the British courts won't do that. I'm sure the US courts won't do that. They just need to be available of the right information. So what we've got to do is get these organisations, these authorities, these government agencies into the courts, and let's see them play. Let's play the game. Let's bring the evidence. Let's bring the expertise, and let's get them into court. And the fund's called Crowd Justice. It's a Crowd Justice Fund. The money goes directly into the escrow account for the legal barrister team only. And we call that, let justice be done though the heavens fall. The reason I named it that was because that was a very interesting, it was when a British court repealed slavery. And the judge, who'd already been threatened by the government, had already been basically bullied and abraded, stood up in the court when he came up with his decision, because obviously The British judicial system is based on God's law. It's based on the Bible. And in God's law, it was abhorrent to have a slave. So consequently, what the judge said in the summing up, he said, let justice be done though the heavens fall, because he'd been told that the whole British economy, because at the time there's a lot of slavery, there's a lot of profit being made from slavery, East India Trading Company. I mean, come on, these characters are still about today. The offspring of these people are still kicking around, lords and ladies and all the rest of it, because make sure, listen, their tentacles travel all the way across the world into the US. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. And that dictum was turned over by a British court. Hear what he said. He made that statement and he repealed slavery. And what actually happened on the back of that, we saw a massive increase in the economy. It didn't go the other way. It actually increased. So they saw a total opposite of what the government had threatened. Government was threatening. And obviously we repealed slavery. I'm pretty sure 5G is the enslavement and the annihilation of the human race. And I believe that same sort of statement had to be said in this fundraise, so that we can get them into court, so we can bring these characters before a judge and let them be judged under God's law. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see if the British judicial system will allow the genocide of the people of this country, and not just this country, the world.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, before all the judges are corrupt, it needs to be done. So thanks for spending the time, and hold on during the break. I've got a couple of other things I need to share with you, and hopefully we'll have you back shortly. Okay, guys, there goes Mark Steele. I thought that was a very interesting discussion. Went on a little longer than I expected, but it was good, and we have a lot more to talk about with him. You know, during this couple of months before the show, people were sending me information that was showing that Mark Steele's really a terrible person, that he's really lying about all this stuff. None of it's true. He has all this bad stuff in his life. And I thought, well, I don't ever just listen to people's accusations of anybody. I mean, I listen to them, but I don't assume they're true, because people can make accusations about you or me or anybody. And there's two things about that. One is everybody, all of us in the learning process, have made mistakes that we're really regretting from our earlier life. And that is called the normal human learning process on the 3D plane. The other thing is that the accusations can be made up for all kinds of reasons. So I thought, well, the best way would be to just get Mark back on the show and talk to him. And understanding that I can be completely wrong in my assessment of people, because, you know, I'm as fallible as anybody, for sure, at least. My impression of Mark is that he's sincere, that he's really working for what he believes in, that he's got this passion about scientifically understanding how things work, including 5G and everything else, and that I think he's a good guy. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'd be really surprised. And the explanations that he gave me about some of the complaints I brought up, I thought were good explanations. And I don't know whether he's right personally about 5G generating frequency in the sub-gigahertz range. That is opposite from what I and almost everybody else has been taught. But if he's right, I mean, just because he's the only person that I know of saying it does not mean he's wrong. And if he's right, it's really, really important information. So I want him back on the show and talk about that and other aspects of science in clear terms that everybody can understand and use. I thought it was great. I think he's sincerely trying to stop 5G. I think he absolutely believes and understands that it's a destructive system, a weapon system. I don't see any of that hypocritical stuff that the trolls and critics have been claiming there at all. They probably hate me as a result too, but honestly, that my feeling from him is clear and good. Doesn't mean he's a perfect person, and neither am I, and neither are any of the other people that I've ever met. Well, pretty much that's true. And it doesn't matter, because if the worst person in the galaxy tells you something and it's true, it's still true. And there's this typical technique that is used to distract your attention from something that was said that's true and important, and say, well, look, this person did this 3 years ago. It's not relevant. It's not relevant at all. Is the statement true or is it not true? That's what matters. And I haven't seen anything to indicate that Mark Steele's giving us bad information at all. So again, his website is saveusnow.org.uk in England. And watch our videos during the week. We're trying to make more of those as often as time permits. Also, we've got a new page for Subscribestar, which is, in theory, anyway, if enough people notice it and the ones that are able to make some donation, it might actually keep us on the air. We still have to deal with the censorship, of course, which is ramping up, but the money issue can also take you down, and we're not selling a bunch of products, in case you've noticed. So we need donations, and Subscribestar is one way to do that. It's subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio. And also, in case we get knocked off the air on the major platforms, we're getting onto others. Doug is making sure we get pages on new platforms that are appropriate and don't censor. The primary one of which right now is called Brighteon.com, and that's BRIGHTEON.com, and our channel is Brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. The more you use that platform, which is non-censoring, will grow and be supported. So it's really important to do it. What else? We got the videos during the week, the Sunday show, guest show like this one that you just watched. We'll try to get the best people for inspiration and information that we possibly can. And I'm just amazed at what spectacular people we get to talk to. It's an honor, just like it is to deal with all of you. And so I appreciate that. The other thing is that if you want to get into working on yourself, where the hidden power point really lies, that is strong enough to transform your life and the outside world at a certain point as well, as unbelievable as that might sound, check out planetaryhealingclub.com. It's got very small dues that go to support our nonprofit research institute and help us stay on the air and help us do our work. And if we ever find enough donations to build a school that is our intent, then we'll do that too, unlike any other such organization or institute that I've seen anywhere in the world. It's going to be amazing. And if we don't get enough money to do that, we'll at least keep doing what we can over the internet as long as that's available to us. I'm also doing some private sessions with anybody who is very serious about transforming their life, whether you're just a regular person like me or most of us, or if you're inside the power structure in a special position and you're working for things that you realize are destructive and you want to consider changing course and how to do that and what are the potential things that you could do from inside your position. Let me know, Richard@LostArtsRadio.com, and I'll give you priority for a private session as soon as the time is there. Anybody else is interested in one-on-one sessions to make some deep changes, just write to me and I'll tell you when and if I've got time. Richard@LostArtsRadio.com. Other than that, stay in touch with the public shows and the videos we make during the week, planetaryhealingclub.com, and I think that's about it. As long as we're able to stay up, I hope you guys can benefit from the information we're putting out. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Introducing Lost Arts Radio on Subscribestar.com. Just go to Subscribestar.com/LostArtsRadio to find our rewards program, offering 10 different giving levels starting at just $5 a month. We offer incredible value for any rewards level. from extra monthly interview videos not available publicly to subscription-based Planetary Healing Club videos once, twice, or 3 times a month, to private counseling sessions with Lost Arts Radio host Richard Sachs, to tech help with me, Doug Diamond. We even have one option where you can be the star on Lost Arts Radio as our guest on a specially produced show just for you. We conduct an interview with you and broadcast it to our growing network and listenership. Our subscribe star levels are one of a kind and offer great rewards for any budget. Please help support Lost Arts Radio. We can't do it without you. With increasing censorship on many of our channels, we really need your support today to keep doing what we're doing. As Richard says, we're not even at survival level yet. Lost Arts Radio has 3 weekly shows. Lost Arts Radio Live each Saturday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, which is a live stream currently on multiple platforms in case we get banned from some of the larger ones. Right now, we're on 2 YouTube channels, Facebook Live, Periscope, which is Twitter, Twitch, and DLive. You can access these broadcasts by going to www.lostartsradio.com/live for all the links to those channels. The Planetary Healing Club meets right after Lost Arts Radio Live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Saturday nights. And our Sunday show with guests airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday nights on our Blog Talk Radio channel, our YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and on Brighteon. Be sure to sign up for our free email list just in case we do get banned on big tech's platforms. It's just a matter of time, really. They don't like the stuff we talk about, and they do not want the truth out there. In fact, they have already attacked us numerous times. Join our free email list so we can let you know where we are and how to access our shows. The sign-up button is right on the top right on most pages of our website. The best starting point for all things Lost Arts Radio is our main site, lostartsradio.com, where you can find the hottest news selection videos that we curate just for you. Those are on the homepage and added to daily, as well as articles and breaking news about information you really need to know. Our show archives, the 10 most recent shows, are right on our homepage, as well as our Blog Talk Radio page at blogtalkradio.com/lostartsradio, or just click the All Things Radio Show tab right on our website. We're in the podcast directory on iTunes, and all of our shows except the banned ones are on our YouTube channels at Lost Arts Radio and at Diamond Disc. Our Brighteon page is really taking off, and we often have editors' picks videos right on their homepage. Visit brighteon.com/channel/LostArtsRadio. On our site, you can also access our free listener forum as well as sign up for the Planetary Healing Club, which is just $25 a month, where you get private access to a one-on-one interaction with host Richard Sachs and myself and the other club members who participate live. More info can be found at planetaryhealingclub.com. We're providing solutions in there to make the world a better place. Come join us. Stay tuned, because up next, you'll get to hear a really great song by an independent artist that we're doing our best to support. Go to lostartsradio.com/music for the full list of all the great songs and bands that we spin on our audio-only podcast shows. If you're in a band and want to submit a song for consideration for airplay on Lost Arts Radio, visit my website at diamonddiscaudio.com for more information about the music placement, mastering, and mixing work that I do. Thanks again for listening to and supporting Lost Arts Radio. We love having you as part of our family to learn, experience, and grow with.
Cyberspace, it's all over the place, got control of the human race. Big brother, he's watching you with the click of the mouse. He's in your house, he's in your phone, right there with you, wherever you go. Be careful where you go, be careful what you say. Big brother, he ain't far away. Careful what you ask, careful what you do. Big brother, he's watching you, everything you do. Big brother, he's watching you, he's watching you. CCTV